Welcome to Liberty Voice USA, where truth cuts through the noise, facts take center stage, and politics meets accountability. Here, we don't chase headlines, we confront them. We strip away the spin, the sound bites, and the staged outrage to uncover what's really happening behind America's most powerful institutions. Because when those who hold the scales of justice tip them for political convenience, it's not just a story, it's a warning. And tonight, that warning came loud and clear from inside the nation's highest court. What began as a procedural moment turned into a clash that left even seasoned observers silent when Justice Samuel Alito interrupted Representative Jasmine Crockett during a rare congressional hearing involving judicial ethics, transparency, and the future of public trust in the Supreme Court. But it was her final line, calm, deliberate, and surgical, that made the entire room pause. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a performance. It was truth spoken in a place that too often forgets what that sounds like. To understand why this moment struck such a chord, you have to step back and see the tension that's been building for years between the legislative branch, where oversight lives, and the judicial branch, where power is shielded by robes and lifetime appointments. The Supreme Court, once the symbol of moral clarity, has in recent years found itself mired in controversy, from undisclosed gifts to partisan appearances, from leaked opinions to political speeches masquerading as judicial independence. And when lawmakers like Jasmine Crockett stepped in to question whether America's highest judges still hold themselves to the same standards they impose on others, the pushback was immediate and fierce.
During the hearing, as Representative Crockett began her questioning, the atmosphere was already tense. The committee room was heavy with that quiet sense of performance that comes when power is being challenged. Her tone was professional, precise. She wasn't grandstanding, she was dissecting, with the calm of a lawyer and the clarity of a citizen who simply had enough. She began to outline a pattern, not of partisan bias, but of ethical inconsistency. If the American people are expected to disclose every detail of their income for accountability, she asked, why should Supreme Court justices be exempt from the same transparency? Justice Alito leaned forward. His interjection came not in anger, but in that sharp judicial cadence familiar to anyone who's ever been cross-examined. Congresswoman, he said, with all due respect, the judiciary is a separate and co-equal branch of government. We are not subject to political whims. His tone was calm, but it carried the unmistakable weight of a man used to having the final word. But Crockett didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply waited, a pause long enough for silence to become its own kind of statement. Then, with deliberate precision, she replied, Justice Alito, no one here is questioning the independence of the court. What we're questioning is whether independence has become immunity. The room stilled. It wasn't a soundbite. It was an incision, cutting through years of legal abstraction and self-protection to the heart of what Americans have been asking for months: accountability. What followed wasn't chaos, but discomfort, the kind that comes when the truth is too close to deny. Members of the committee shifted in their seats. Reporters lowered their pens for a moment. Even Alito's expression, usually fixed, unbothered, betrayed the briefest flicker of reaction. And in that instant, the power dynamic shifted. The justice who had interrupted was now being held accountable, not through outrage or disrespect, but through the quiet weight of a question that demanded an answer. Stay tuned, stay aware, and stay truthful. This is Liberty Voice USA, where facts speak louder than politics.
This wasn't just another viral exchange. It was a reflection of something deeper. The growing divide between those who wield authority and those who still believe in the responsibility that comes with it. Because the truth is, America's faith in its institutions isn't collapsing because of one scandal or one decision. It's eroding because of a pattern of defensiveness, of privilege dressed as principle, of justifications instead of justice. Justice Alito's response, that the judiciary cannot be swayed by public opinion, sounded noble on paper, but Crockett's reply exposed its hypocrisy. Public opinion, she said, isn't the enemy of justice, it's the reason justice exists. Courts don't rule in a vacuum. They rule in the name of the people. That statement landed like a quiet verdict, one that didn't need applause to echo. In that moment, Crockett wasn't just speaking for her district in Texas. She was speaking for millions of Americans who've watched the nation's most powerful figures operate behind closed doors, citing tradition and independence as shields from scrutiny. She was giving voice to a growing realization that independence without oversight isn't freedom, it's feudalism. And when even the highest court in the land resists the very transparency it demands from others, democracy doesn't just falter, it fractures. This exchange between Crockett and Alito wasn't about personal politics. It was about the soul of the system, whether power serves the people or whether people serve power. The Supreme Court has always stood above the fray, but in doing so, it has also placed itself beyond the reach of the everyday American. Alito's interruption was symbolic, the instinct of an institution uncomfortable with being questioned. Crockett's response was something rarer, a reminder that questioning authority isn't disrespect, it's democracy in action. As the hearing moved forward, the tension didn't fade. You could sense the shift, subtle but real. Alito's tone softened slightly, not in admission, but in awareness. He began to speak less as a man defending himself and more as one reconsidering how it all appeared. That's the quiet power of accountability, not humiliation, not confrontation, but reflection.
Later, political analysts would frame the moment as another partisan clash, reducing it to a talking point on cable news. But what happened in that room wasn't performance, it was perspective. It was a rare instance where truth wasn't shouted, but spoken. And in that measured calm, Crockett reminded the nation that real power isn't about position, it's about principle. Because when a Supreme Court justice interrupts an elected representative, it's more than an exchange of words, it's a reflection of imbalance. A reminder that somewhere along the way, deference replaced dialogue. Yet in her final line, Crockett restored that balance. She looked directly at Alito and said, "If justice is blind, then transparency shouldn't scare her." No theatrics, no applause, just a sentence that landed like a gavel. And perhaps that's what made the court and the country gasp, because behind that one line was a truth too clear to ignore. Transparency isn't a threat to justice, it's the foundation of it. And when those who interpret the law forget that, it takes someone outside the marble walls to remind them. In the days that followed, the clip spread across social media, dissected, debated, distorted. Some praised Crockett's composure, others accused her of grandstanding. But through the noise, one thing became undeniable. Americans are no longer satisfied with the illusion of integrity. They want proof. And that's what makes this moment historic. not because it embarrassed a justice, but because it exposed a culture where questions are seen as threats and accountability as disrespect. Yet this isn't the end of the story. It's a beginning, a signal that the walls protecting unaccountable power are starting to crack. The same walls that for decades kept the public out of judicial conduct, ethics violations, and secret influence. Because once the truth is spoken aloud, once the illusion breaks, it can't be unspoken. And that's the quiet revolution that moments like this ignite.
Jasmine Crockett didn't win a political argument that day. She reclaimed a moral one. She reminded America that justice isn't supposed to be comfortable, it's supposed to be fair. And fairness demands light, even when that light shines where it's least wanted. So when Justice Alito interrupted her, it wasn't just an attempt to control the narrative, it was an instinct born of entitlement. And her response was the antidote: calm, factual, fearless. Because real power doesn't shout, it stands its ground. In the echo of that exchange, something powerful lingered, a question bigger than the hearing itself. Can a democracy survive when its guardians resist scrutiny? Crockett's words answered it, not with outrage, but with reason. If independence means you're beyond reproach, then independence has become corruption. That line, though paraphrased, captures the essence of the moment, a confrontation not between left and right, but between truth and self-preservation, between a system built on accountability and a culture afraid of it. And as the clip continues to ripple through America's political consciousness, one thing is certain. The conversation about judicial accountability is no longer confined to law schools and opinion columns. It's alive in living rooms, in classrooms, and in every corner where citizens still believe that truth matters. Because democracy doesn't collapse in silence, it collapses when we stop asking questions. And that day, Jasmine Crockett asked one that echoed louder than any gavel. Stay tuned, stay aware, and stay truthful. This is Liberty Voice USA, where facts speak louder than politics.